All right, for those who don't know me, my name's Stuart Brinsmead. I worked with the Education Department for about 8 years across 20 schools. That was from the start of 2000 up until about 2008. So, of course, we saw lots of changes in the Education Department and the education system at that time. I then left and went out into industry land for a couple of years, and out there worked for law firms, engineering firms, corner shops, aged care, whatever. And whilst I was out there, of course, I came across Citrix. So Citrix is basically a way of presenting either applications or a desktop from one location to another. So the company I worked for, we had clients as far away as Western Australia, Northern Territory, and the data centre was based in Hobart. So the idea with Citrix is that you can present an application from one location out to various areas. So at Sacred Heart, we started our one-to-one program when we got the government money, and we did grade 9 and 10 initially. We've got a really good principal, but he's more of a big picture man, so he came to us after that first year of grade 9 and 10. He said he wanted to extend the one-to-one program down to grade 7 and 8. So initially what we did was we bought laptops and we on-sold those to parents. But we're probably too kind to our parents, so we gave them 2 years to pay off their device. And because we bought commercial grade devices, they weren't as cheap as what you could go and buy them for from Harvey Norman. But as you all know, if you buy a commercial Lenovo laptop, then you've got part supply for 4 years, you've got really good backup, and it's a lot simpler for the school to do it that way. Unfortunately, we ended up getting a lot of blowback from dissatisfied parents with the device that they had. So typical thing with IT, you do a survey and the only people that are going to respond to the survey are the ones that have got complaints. So we put surveys out there, we'd probably get 10 responses and they're all complaints. The other 130 parents were quite happy with what they had. The issues we had around supplying the device were, firstly, we were being treated as a vendor, so if something went wrong with the device, the parents expected us to either replace it or give them their money back, which was always an interesting one. 1 in 5 of our families don't pay or they're on a rebate, so it meant that over the 2 years we were holding about 60 grand of cash we were trying to either get back or that we were just going to write off, so it was getting very expensive for the school to run that. And finally, we also did insurance for our parents, so the parents would pay $45 for the year and then a $100 excess. So little Johnny breaks his screen, we replace the screen and then they get it back. But there was a lot of administration behind that. And we had one particularly bad year group and we went through, I think it was about 45 screens in 1 year. So it wasn't good and we had to change the way we were doing things. So our principal decided that he wanted to go for BYOD. I didn't like the idea, or the original idea I didn't like, because it was simply that we would specify the type of device and the type of software that they had to have on it, and then they would bring that to school, and we'd try and cope with that. Obviously the issues, I think anyone that's tried BYOD knows what the issues with that are, and they are that, you have different versions of Windows, you have different versions of Office, some people want to use OpenOffice, you have no control whatsoever over the device, and it was something that filled me with a bit of fear, to be honest. So we looked at it and then I thought of Citrix, so we got all the pricing for Citrix, looked at what we would need server-wise, looked at how we're going to fund it, and all the numbers sort of came up, so we decided to run Citrix. So what that means is that basically you can bring to our school, you can bring a Mac, an iPad, an Android device, any kind of Windows laptop, and you will get the school applications streamed from our school to your device. So we control the desktop still, or we control the applications. You can present Citrix 2 ways. You can present it either as an application or as a desktop. I've chosen to go with applications, so I'll show you how it works in a minute. What that meant was putting in about $150,000 worth of servers and SANs in the back end. I looked at getting it hosted, but over the 5 years that worked out to be about $1 million with what we needed. Whereas if we bought the gear and we funded it with IBM, we did IBM finance through it, the costs, it's not too bad. I think it's about $25,000, $30,000 a year that we're going to pay. for the equipment, and we fund a lot of that through a levy that the parents now have to pay. Again, have to remember that 1 in 5 of our families don't pay, so we're still taking a bit of a hit, but it still worked out to be a lot better value than actually getting everything hosted. So we set all the gear up at the school. We let our grade 7 parents know that that this was going to happen. Oddly, they seemed quite happy with it. Just to go back a bit, in the first year that we decided that parents had to buy a laptop, we got a lot of blowback. We got a lot of questioning and a lot of people wondering why we were going down that route. I used to have to present at the grade 7 night, or the grade 7 information night. A lot of questions the first year, not so many questions the third year. When we did bring your own device, I gave the little spiel and has anyone got any questions, and it was just silent. So I think parents are pretty much, they've been trained now that they know they have to buy some kind of device, or that they're going to have to pay for something, so that was good. So at the start of this year, we'd set the desktop up, we tested it in a really nice clinical environment. Everything seemed to work beautifully. I still wasn't 100% convinced that it was going to pay off for us. We got the new grade 7 students to bring whatever device they'd bought in over the holidays, and we would connect them up to the wireless. We also installed the Citrix receiver onto the laptop, whatever device they had. You don't need to do that. Citrix will actually run through HTML5 as well, but it's better with the receiver, so we did all that for them. We got about half of them in before the first couple of days of school. Now our grade 7s came back early, and because teachers and admin sometimes don't realise how long it takes to set IT things up, they gave us 1 hour to get all the kids hooked up to the Citrix desktop. So that was 120 students with, and I'm not kidding, 120 different devices. It was 35 degrees that day, and the rooms we were in had no air conditioning. And of course the kids were excited to see each other. There's a real buzz, you know, in the room if you were a 13-year-old and a child, perhaps not if you're an IT guy. So anyway, by the end of that 1 hour, we had probably 90% of those kids running with the Citrix desktop. So I never expected it to be that successful. You know, I mean, I thought if we got 50% of these kids running today, that was a win. But we got most of them going, and I've got to say that the students have picked it up really, really well. The teachers, not so well. So I'll log into the desktop. Firstly, as me. I've got to say during this too, our admin building is currently being redeveloped, and they're 2 weeks behind schedule, and there's a lot of electricians hanging around our server room, so if anything drops out or doesn't work, that's what I'm blaming. Nothing to do with the system at all. So I've got a lot of applications here, so I choose which applications that we can present, and I can actually break that down into Active Directory groups as well. So I'll log on as a student in a minute, and you can see the kind of things that they will get there. To add an application, we just click on the plus sign, go over here, and you can just drop an application down and run it. To run the application, I'll just open Synergetic, which is our school management system. One of the issues with this is that the first time you log on to an application, effectively you're logging onto another computer again. So you've always got that delay of maybe a minute and a half. We use roaming profiles as well. Roaming profiles is something I came to despise when I was in the education department, and we didn't use them at Sacred Heart College for good reason, but with the virtual desktops, they're pretty much essential. When you're running 30 servers, there's 30 servers in the background of all this, and they all load balance, but each time you open Outlook, you don't want to have to go through the next setup. So with the roaming profile, that just brings all those settings in. I thought they were going to blow out, and the server that holds all the roaming profiles, I set a 500 gig hard drive on it. I thought that's not going to be anywhere near enough. It's currently sitting on about 60 gig usage, so they're quite small, and we strip things out like the OneNote cache, temporary internet files and all that sort of thing. So you log into it, you can see everything's quite snappy. It's really no different to if it was running directly from this computer. Now this is actually running from a server back at Sacred Heart College, coming up into the into the magic area, and then it comes down onto my laptop here. So quite snappy. Now, before for staff to log into Synergetic, they'd have to jump through about three different gateways to get through it with all the security. Here you log in once and then you open the application and it all works for you. I can even get to network drives.
Say you build up that student list.
Yep.
Can you export text or functionality?
Yep, everything works. So that's a network drive we've got there. This pop-up that's asking me now, it's saying, do I want to allow access to the local device, which is asking, do we want to see this computer? So I can actually allow access to my local computer. Web browsing too. So when students use this and they use the web browsing through Citrix, it's all filtered, so it's a school filtering system. The other interesting thing with this, it uses ICA traffic. So what I've told parents, our teachers, we get teachers, particularly perhaps some that have 6 teenage boys, and they're trying to use Citrix applications and they're getting stuttering. Obviously, you say to them, well, you boys, you've got a congested internet connection. It's not our internet connection back at school. If you run it through your phone, the traffic is so small that you're better off to log into Citrix and do your browsing through Citrix on the phone, because you won't use anywhere near the data that you would if you just browse Google on your phone. Okay? It's tiny, it's really compressed. So what we've done with our teachers is most of them we've actually hooked up their laptops or their netbook through the phone. That way they're not going to suffer from the congested internet connections they might get when they get home, and that works really well. I was sat in Bishno, hooked up through the phone, word process, access everything that we need at school. And it's quick, it's really good. So I'll just log on as a student. So this is though, so she obviously, she only gets the stuff, she's a grade 7 student, she only gets what's applicable to grade 7 students. She won't necessarily get the things that the grade 10 students will get. You can use a lot of smoke and mirrors with this. We looked at getting an LMS system, but when I looked at what the LMS has offered and what we already had, I mean, we've already got what we need. We've got SharePoint, we've got Synergetic, we've got our online reporting. Through Citrix. And unfortunately, some peaks in our wireless data, but we've just put some restrictions around the way they can use YouTube now, and that's solved all that for us. What Zoe can also do, she's got her mail. Again, because it's a roaming profile, it just sets up straight away. She might be on any one of the 30 servers. They actually automatically load balance, so when you log on, it'll look for the lowest used server and log you onto that. You can also open up any Office application, or indeed any application really. So they log in and they just get the desktop that they're all used to, which will have all the icons on it. I mean, you can still run it that way. I don't like doing it that way. I think it's messy, and I think they'll get more confused because they've got 2 different desktops there. They won't sort of get the right one. I did like the idea of not joining the new teacher laptops to the domain, and just presenting a Citrix desktop, on their own desktop. But you've just got that one location there. You're always working off one location, and there's not 2 different files running there. One thing I'm going to show you too is the online reporting system. So the great thing I love about this is by default we've sort of got single sign-on running without really trying. So Zoe's logged in once to Citrix, and then she can just click on her Synergetic icon there, and that will give her online reporting. Peaks in its performance yet. When we designed the system, we designed it for 1,000. Even though maximum we should have on it is about 700 or 750, and it's running quite well just with that amount of users at the moment.